black girl nerves. Better shake your booties for black girl nerves.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today. First of all, I just want to say, Felecia, I feel like we've been following each other for years on Twitter. So it's a great opportunity to be able to finally talk to you and see you in this interview. So thank you. And to Pharrell, I live in Virginia Beach. So
Whoa, what part?
town center area, not that far from Princess Anne.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop playing. Do you understand how many times we would leave school and walk over to Pembroke Mall?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, right behind.
Okay, home team.
Yeah. So thank you for everything you do for Hampton Roads. I just really appreciate it. We need an advocate like you for our community. And I love what you're doing now. And I love what you recently did with Norfolk State, the talk that you did with some of the financial advisors there in the community. That Norfolk State is my alma mater. So.
Well, listen, thank you. And it's mine too now.
Right, you're an honorary grad.
Yeah, and they made me an honorary member of the band. So
Nice.
I'm there with the Spartans.
Spartans.
But yeah, thank you. And you know what? Like, I will say, there's it's important. Like, home is important, and all we can do is our best and just go super hard. And when you mentioned the event that you're talking about at Norfolk State that we had, that's called Elephant in the Room. Yes. We're going to do that every year, and next year it's going to be even bigger, and it's going to be crazy. So just get ready. I can't say it so much, but it's going to be big, and there's going to be a lot of big companies that not just the financial institutions, but also big, Fortune 500 companies showing up. And again, I'm getting ahead of myself and saying too much, but that event is going to be explosive, like with so much like amazing potential. And I'm just so happy that it will be there in Norfolk.
Yeah, I'm excited. And again, I just can't thank you enough for what you're doing for our community. So thank you for that. Look forward to it.
Nah, thank you. Thank you, sis.
So Black ambition. I'm going to start with you, Felecia. I love how you state that you provide a path for founders to achieve their goals uninterrupted. Because oftentimes we as entrepreneurs, we get discouraged. We want to quit when we run out of resources. Or if we're underwater. So for Black ambition and the kind of support it provides, what does an uninterrupted journey look like?
Yeah. It's on one end of that, it's permission to dream, right? And so as much as we talk about the uninterrupted part and also the ambition part, but like dream bigger. I think oftentimes when we're kids or even adults, it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or like, what kind of company that you want to build? But for us, it's asking the question, if like nothing stood in the way of you achieving success, like what would your life look like? What kind of company would you build? What kind of impact would you want to have if nothing stood in the way? And then giving our founders and entrepreneurs and people just permission to be able to hold on to the dream and then create that thing, right? And then it's our job at Black Ambition to support and keep the path clear as much as possible so that they can build their thing. So like that's it. That's what that means for us. That's what it means for our founders. We ask them that question quite a few times throughout the year, especially this past year, because we want them to be able to hold on to that and then go build that. And then as they assemble partners and investors, strategic partners, people on their team, they should be asking them that same question too, with the hope that it aligns with their vision of what they're trying to build if nothing stands in the way of their success.
That's incredible. I love that kind of support that you offer entrepreneurs. Pharrell, there's a huge racial disparity when it comes to VC funding of Black businesses. Black founders as well. But would it be safe to say that there are so few Black VCs in the venture space that that also plays a factor in the lack of funding for Black businesses? And is Black Ambition working to address or change that?
That's a great question. Yes, there is a deficit, but there's not necessarily the deficit in people who want to do it and people who are trying. They just don't have the support. The ecosystem's not there in the way that it should be. Yeah, that is something that is a major focus of Black Ambition. And in fact, that was the impetus for it. We needed more, and if we want to have a voice when it comes to, our futures, then we have to have more ownership in our communities, and keep our dollars, do more to keep our dollars in our community as well as where we spend them elsewhere, right? There's a statistic that the dollars of other demographics will stay in their communities sometimes 60 days. And then there's other demographics, and I don't want to be offensive to anyone, so I refrain from saying which demographic it is. But then there's another demographic where their dollar stays in there for roughly a month and a half. But then the African American dollar stays in its community for like 6 days, right? So when you think about the three pillars that really really hold us down, like the real true gravitational forces for us economically, it is a disproportionate access to healthcare, disproportionate access to education, and disproportionate access to representation. And when you look in the communities of those other demographics, like the demographics where their dollar stays in their community for roughly 2 months, you'll see that they have doctors in their communities, right? They have lawyers in their communities. They have politicians, right? So both forms of representation. They have somebody. They have educators in their communities. And if it's not in the family, it's a cousin. If it's not in a cousin, it's not a cousin, it's somebody in the community. And then when you think about it, there's like this ecosystem where the child grows up thinking like, oh no, I can do anything. I mean, we got everything we need. This is like a little beehive right here. What can I be? What can I do? Right? But when you grow up in a community where all those things are constantly being sucked from you, and you're just reaching and reaching, and almost nobody has the ability to get up there and swing from those bars to get out, then what kind of hope do you have? So of course you're going to go snatching the low-hanging fruit that is usually just poison. You know what I'm saying? Trouble waiting to happen, right? So what we want to do is create an ecosystem that has a lot of entrepreneurial spirit, ownership, and also where there's C-suite positions that are being held by people who look like us, Black and Latinx, and also people of color, and actually more women, right? But Black Ambition can't do everything. But more women. And then all of a sudden, then our kids are getting great educations, and our kids have great access to healthcare and medicine, and great access to representation, whether it is lobbying at Capitol Hill or, on Capitol Hill, or it is just like a lawyer because, somebody then ran a stoplight. That's where the conversation changes. So for us, this is what Black Ambition is. It is the audacity to bolster up ownership and the entrepreneurial spirit in our communities so that we build like this amazing comprehensive web of audacity and diligence and experience, and most importantly, mentorship.
Mentorship is so important, and you brought up ecosystem, and I think HBCUs, which is what you guys are focusing on, is essentially an ecosystem for Black students and Black educators. And Felecia, over to you. As an HBCU grad myself, I am really proud of the fact that your team is supporting this body of college students. What opportunities do you see that HBCUs can improve upon when it comes to preparing students for entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I mean, HBCUs do such a great job and also get the baddest rap at all at the same time, right? And they're so necessary. I would say, you know, prioritizing innovation and entrepreneurship is something that I would love to see more, even though some of our HBCUs have very limited resources. But I think partnerships with organizations like ours and others help to fill in that gap in a really, really smart way, right? And so more entrepreneurship programs and majors on some of those campuses, more innovation partnerships, more corporate partnerships that fuel that other side of it as well are, I think, some areas in which we can all improve on. But I think being able, as much as organizations like ours can kind of help foster and fill in the gap to support HBCUs in that way, like they are the true breeding ground for innovation, right? Black innovation and entrepreneurship. And most times when you look at some of our most successful people that we follow, right, or are excited about, usually there's some sort of touch point with an HBCU. If they didn't go to one directly, someone in their family did, or they're major contributors into HBCUs. And so I'm proud of the work that we're able to do. And then I would say what we learned from last year to this year is that we are diving deeper into our support of HBCUs. And so what most people don't know is last year when we did the prize, we funded early stage startups. We had our HBCU track, but the winning the founder from the HBCU founder, we also funded and wrote a check to that HBCU as well, with the hopes of it funding or supporting some sort of entrepreneurship programming on their campus. And so we're doing the same thing this year. We're also launching some venture studios on some HBCU campuses. And then we're taking our training and putting it to like a 3-day model and taking that as a roadshow to some HBCU campuses as well.
Oh, I love that. I love that you guys are funding HBCUs because there's reports out there that they're so underfunded. So thank you for doing that. Pharrell, there seems to be this negative stigma when it comes to Black-owned businesses as being less than. First of all, why do you think that is? And what can we do as consumers to shift that way of thinking and support more Black-owned businesses as they continue to grow in the marketplace, which is what you guys are doing with Black Ambition?
Well, the stigma is taught, just like racism is taught. It's just taught in schools. You know, it's just the way that we were taught to look at ourselves and for people to look at us. You know, that we were always lesser than. And I think, what was it? What was your second question? What can we do?
What can we do as consumers? I mean, we have such strong buying power as Black Americans. Yeah, what can we do to change the stigma?
That's exactly it. Is to understand your buying power. Understand what it is that you do when you spend your dollar, right? If you're gonna spend a currency that has the likeness of people who enslaved our ancestors.
Talk about it.
Think about how you spend that money. You know what I'm saying? Most of them were, you know, they were slave owners, right? They felt in their hearts that they owned, you know, human beings. Mm-hmm. And funded a lot of their businesses off of the sweat off of our backs and the sweat of our brows, separating our families, everything. So you just think about that every time you spend that currency. Mm-hmm. And get some cryptocurrency while you're at it.
Preach. Wow, I never thought about it that way. You just opened up my third eye with that, with how we're spending our currency, and that we're literally spending currency that have the faces of men that enslaved our ancestors.
Absolutely. Listen, if you spend your money like you do your time and your love, you'll never be broke.
Wow.
Right. That's deep. I love that. Felecia, while there are opportunities to apply for funding and gain access to opportunities like Black Ambition, there are also applicants that apply time and time again and they get rejected. What are some of the red flags you see when you're scrutinizing applicants? And the second part to that is, well, just to add to that, I think that by answering and addressing this can help founders understand what they got wrong, since sometimes they don't always get that feedback when they apply.
Yeah. There's quite a few things that we see, right? There's things that we look for. There's things that we see. Big reason why we're even launching the tour is to really help build better applicants for prizes like ours and for other competitions, accelerators, funds that are out there. And so one I would say is sometimes entrepreneurs just don't believe in themselves enough to complete the application, right? They see a question that they may have never been asked before and they stop right there. And so I think if you peel back like the layer on a lot of competitions, you'll see a high number of people who start applications and don't finish, right? And so sometimes you just got to borrow the belief of other people. Like, we built Black Ambition because we believe in you enough to create the opportunity, but you got to be able to meet us halfway. I was the team part, just insight from our process last year is talking more about your team, right? The team that you can pay for, the team that volunteers, the advisors that you have in your corner. I would say from my experience judging, white pitch competitions as opposed to what we're doing with Black Ambition, there was a heavy emphasis of like, these are the people that are my advisors. This is their skill set. This is what they've been able to do. And then in like kind of Black pitch competitions or prize competitions, you don't see the team talked about enough. And that's really helpful. Like if you're just starting to do this thing, you don't have as much experience or many wins or sales, then really being able to talk about the expertise that you can bring to the table is really important. The best advice I got from a mentor of mine now is just like, talk about your resource magnetism, because sometimes you may not have the money, but you can be a magnet for the resources. And she's like, if all else fails, talk about that, because that could be the thing that takes you over the hump of just like, I don't have it, but I know how to get it, right? And I may not have this connection, but I know where to find it. And that oftentimes is a thing. I would say the other part is like numbers, like get really solid and clear on your numbers and what you need. Would be the other thing that I think sometimes is a misstep for founders. And then your culture, like we often talk about culture being an asset in Black Ambition. And this isn't the environment where you downplay that. Like we actually want to see your pride in your culture, how you contribute back to the culture. Like those are things that we look for, and you'd be surprised how many other organizations that are funding Black and Latinx entrepreneurs or supporting them are also looking for that pride in your culture, and knowing that there is money for people that are deeply connected to their culture.
Oh, that's such a great resource and good to know. Pharrell, I love the concept of the tagline that Black Ambition uses, and we've heard this tagline before, but I love the concept of your network is your net worth. Can you share with us the kind of relationship that Black Ambition winners will have with their mentors?
Actually, Felecia, I think you're better suited for that.
Yeah, so we funded 34 companies last year. We supported and trained through a 5-month program about 300 entrepreneurs. And so they all got paired in small group settings of 5 to 8 entrepreneurs with a mentor. But like we literally tapped into Pharrell's network for most of our mentors. That just speaks to the caliber of who these mentors were. And those relationships have varied, right? A lot of those relationships are still standing. Jonah Peretti, the founder of BuzzFeed, was a mentor to like 5 of our HBCU founders over the course of 5 months, right? Don Thompson, the former CEO of McDonald's, was like a judge and assisted us. And like I can keep going on and on and on about who supported our founders. Max Tuckman, which is the first Latina to raise over $2 million in equity crowdfunding, like supported our founders. These people are busy people, right? But they believed in Black ambition so much, and our founders. And I would say that the true testament is that I think like 2 of our mentors ended up funding our founders. Like that was a whole other check outside of their Black ambition check.
Wow.
And Trend, which is one of the companies that's actually now based here in Miami, they received $1 million in funding from Flamingo Capital. It's in addition to what Black ambition provided. And then they've gone on to raise some more money as well. And so not only do you get the expertise and the ability to like pick their, I hate saying pick your brain, but like borrow their brain. You get that, you get the community of learning from other entrepreneurs in our Black Ambition Network, you know, for those 34 that got the funding as well. And then we continue to support those entrepreneurs year round through a platform that we built with Eureka, so that there's community and there's programming that exists year round for them as well. And then they get glide paths to accelerators, right? And so we know there's a front door to things and there's a back door to things. And through relationships, we got a lot of back doors, and we get to show entrepreneurs how things are really done through relationships oftentimes, and we're not always told that. And they get some of those opportunities, especially with accelerators and other funds as well.
That's incredible, because I mean, saying, you know, your network is your net worth. It's, you guys aren't just speaking platitudes here, like you're actually literally doing that by building this rapport. And it's important because, yeah, getting the funding is great, and having that startup money is great, but then what's the next step? You know, how do I learn about profit and loss sheets, and how do I know about analytics and KPIs? So I just think it's amazing that you guys have like really top tier mentors to help these founders build their platform along the way. Pharrell,
we just about have time for one last question.
Okay, great. Last question will be for Pharrell. What advice would you give to an entrepreneur who's frustrated, ready to quit, just doesn't have the motivation anymore to keep going on with their business?
You know, that's such a, it's a really good question. But in terms of what your goal is, it's kind of vague, because I think each situation varies. It depends on where the person is at that moment and what they're lacking and what they might need. And I think it's a little bit, that answer requires a bit more fine tuning than what I don't have a blanket answer for that one. So I'm gonna pass to Felecia, because she's like, you know, as I talk about fine tuning and tooling, she's the real mechanic here.
You got to be the biggest return on your ancestors' sacrifice. That's it, right? And so when you want to give up, think about who came before you, who paved the way for that opportunity, channel that, and keep going. That's it.
That's beautiful. I love that. I'm
Man,
just going to use that as my mantra.
Steph Curry with the half court shots.
Right, I know. I love
wow. I'm like, yo, the buzzer about to go off here. Felecia, she's like.
What a way to end the interview. Felecia, Pharrell, thank you so much for this opportunity. I just, again, I appreciate what you guys are doing. I appreciate the fact that you guys are giving founders opportunity. As someone who's a founder, I get the struggle, and I think you guys are doing amazing stuff, and I look forward to seeing how this grows. I look forward to seeing the entrepreneurs that are in this program to see how their businesses grow. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Better shake your booties for black girl nerves. Better shake your booties for black girl nerves.